Thinking about launching a podcast but overwhelmed by all the moving parts? At TurnKey Podcast Productions, we take the hassle out of podcasting so you can focus on the talk, not the tech. From concept to launch, guest booking to post-production, we handle everything. Need a strategy to grow your show and turn guests into clients? Yep, we do that too. DIY or done for you, we've got the solution that fits. Whether you're just getting started or ready to scale, TurnKey is your behind-the-scenes podcast team. TurnKey Podcast Productions. Your voice, your message, fully produced. Learn more at turnkeypodcast.com/contact. That's turnkeypodcast.com/contact. Franosity helps corporate executives and entrepreneurs build generational wealth, diversify their portfolios, or make a smart career pivot through honest, no-pressure franchise consulting. With 20-plus years of real-world experience as franchise owners, operators, and franchisors, the Franosity team knows what works and what doesn't. They don't sell franchises, they guide people to the right fit or steer them away if it's not. Learn more at franosity.com. That's FRANOCITY.com.
Coming up today on The Nice Guys on Business.
Choosing what's next doesn't mean choosing what's forever. And I get there's a lot of like self-inflicted pressure on, picking the right thing. But truthfully, like I started out painting houses, I sold shoes on the internet. It took a while to figure out what's going to be the thing, and that the thing that has the staying power. And so it's almost like it doesn't matter because the first thing is probably not going to be the last thing.
Totally.
You practice this. There's some level of inertia, right? An object in motion stays in motion. An entrepreneur in motion stays in motion.
Yes.
And there's something to building that positive habit of just taking action, seeing what kind of reaction it gets, seeing if you like doing it, and then sticking with it, keeping at it.
If my calculations are correct, when this baby hits 88 miles per hour, you're going to see the Nice Guys on Business podcast. Go from where you are now to where you could be. Get expert tips to grow your business, to be more productive and more efficient, whether you're trying to build influence, grow your community, or make it rain. Best-selling author of Nice Guys Finish First, Doug Sandler, can lead the way. The Nice Guys on Business is produced by TurnKey Podcast Productions. Now, here's your host, Doug Sandler.
All right, Nice Guy community, welcome back. Today it's time to buckle up because we have Nick Loper. He is in the house. He is the chief side hustler himself, host of the Side Hustle Show, and all-around guru of making money outside of the 9 to 5. Nick's got the secret sauce to building an audience, creating an audio gold, and growing your brand without breaking the bank or your sanity. If you've ever wondered how to turn your spare time into cash, this episode is the one that you should be listening to. I'm excited to have him here. Nick, welcome to the Nice Guys on Business podcast.
Doug, thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm excited to have you. And it's just happenstance that actually put us in front for Nice Guy community. So, as I'm sure I've explained to you many times, we are a podcast production company. I was sitting in on another interview that one of my clients was doing, and I'm like, this guy, Nick, I got to have him on my show, which doesn't happen that often because I have so many highly specialized vertical shows. But when you started talking to Brandon, I'm like, oh no, I got to have Nick on my show. So
Well, I appreciate that.
yeah, man. So let's start at the very beginning. Maybe the beginning was you're in elementary school, somewhere around there, and you're trying to figure out, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I'm sure that it did not just hit you in the head and say, I want to do this. I'm going to be a side hustle expert. So what was it that you always wanted to be when you grew up, and how did you make this right turn?
Isn't that weird? Podcaster wasn't really on the list.
No, not at all.
I went through all of the little kids. Oh, I want to be a professional baseball player. I want to be a teacher because that's what I was exposed to. A little bit later on, and this kind of just hit me somewhat recently. It was like this job shadow that I had in high school was going to the King 5 sports desk in Seattle and get to shadow these like sportscasters and producers. And I was like, wanted to go into media. I was like, I think that would be really cool. And then I was like, I ended up going a completely different direction. And then a friend of mine the other day was like, well, you did kind of end up going into media. Right. And it was like, oh, you're right. It was like never really hit me, but it was super cool because these guys, they had, 5 different TVs with all the different ESPN channels going on in their office, and they're just playing basketball. Like, oh, it's a slow new. Oh, we're going to go down and back at that time, check out, what's going on at the Sonics practice, see if we can interview somebody. And it was cool.
Well, how fortunate are we to be able to do this gig full time, whether it's podcasting or the side hustle, and the podcast is used to support the side hustle. How did you make that turn? I think there's a lot of people that they have, I always tell everybody, look, if you want to come to me as a production company and you have a plumbing outfit, you're not going to start a podcast about baking. You're going to start a podcast about plumbing, because there's a direct line between your podcast message and the business that you run. Do you find that what came first, the chicken or the egg, the side hustle or the podcast? And then how did you realize which one would be the better opportunity for you in there? I know I just asked you a bunch of stuff, figure out where do you want to take it?
No, this is helpful to unpack a little bit. So very much the side hustle came first. For me, it was painting houses in college. It was trying to run an online business while I was working corporate. It was starting a bunch of other side projects, some of which succeeded, most of which did not, before ever turning on the microphone and calling out my first guest and saying like, well, maybe, $60 mic, corner of the living room. Is anybody going to find this stuff compelling? Because it was born out of a lot of the same questions, but turn around and ask the audience when you're looking for your side hustle idea. It was like, what do you never get tired of talking about? What do other people come to you for advice for? What lights you up? What are you curious about? What do you have some experience in? And for me, it was like, I loved deconstructing those business ideas. Well, how'd you come up with that? How'd you get your first customers for that? How'd you figure out how much to charge? Like those kind of questions, of 0 to 1 type of questions, super fascinating then back in 2013 and still today. And then in combination with the growth factor of, well, now you got 0 to 1. How do we go from 1 to 10? How'd you grow? How'd you scale? How'd you market? All that stuff. And that's kind of been the driver of the show, and really fortunate for the last several years where that's really been the main focus. The side hustle became the main thing.
So there's a bunch of stuff in there that I want to double click on for just a moment. So difference between a side hustle and being an entrepreneur. Again, we'll revisit that in just a second, but I just want to put a pin on that just so we come back to that. Also, just to try to figure out, like, okay, well, how do you know the passion project that becomes the business tends to be the one that people stay in the longest because they have such a passion that drives them. I have a passion for my classic cars. I have a Ford Mustang. I have 2 old Ford F-250 pickup trucks. I love to restore them. I enjoy them. And I started a podcast about them. Not one that happens very often, but once a month or a couple times a month, whenever it is that I feel like creating the content. And I had somebody that was a parts supplier. They came to me and they're like, hey, can we sponsor maybe I leaned into it a little bit. I kind of gave them the suggestion, and then they came back to me and said, we want to sponsor this. And then I started renting these things out. And then I started promoting the rental of my 3 classic cars on my podcast, which became a life of its own. And all of a sudden, this thing that was an expense to me started to make money because I was not focused on just the money. Sorry, that would maybe a long way for me to come back to. Do you find that people have their most success when they start with the passion instead of being guided by the dollar?
Well, that's a super interesting example, the classic cars example, and the different income streams you've been able to build from it. So passion, as a general rule, kind of stresses me out, where it's like, what are you passionate about? And the thing is, most people are passionate about the stuff, like you mentioned, the classic cars, the craft beer, the stuff that's fun.
Any of that, right? Anything.
And in a world driven by, where there's a lot of passionate people, it kind of tends to drive down the price, and it tends to be more noisy and crowded because people are willing to work for free because it's fun.
Right.
And maybe the better question is, well, how can I align a market pain or problem where people are willing to spend money to solve, or spend money on this, and how can I be a conduit, or how can I help them solve that problem? And if you can pair that with a passion, great. But more often we find that, passion tends to come from doing the work. Like I was painting houses in college and had no passion for painting houses, but after a couple of summers of doing it, you can't help but like look up under the eaves and be like, oh, look, it's peeling up there, and get up there, you scrape it off. Let me give these guys an estimate. And same thing with podcasting is, had no almost by definition couldn't have had a passion for it early on, as I had no idea what I was doing. But it's become such a part of my identity and weekly, monthly routine where it's like, it's hard to imagine not doing it anymore.
I totally agree with you. Very hard to imagine after whatever 1610 or whatever episodes, some crazy stupid number that we have. I could not imagine not having podcasting as the center of the hub of the wheel. I always tell everybody that becomes a client, look, we want to make sure that your podcast, if you're excited about it or can get excited about it, becomes the center of your the hub of your wheel rather than a spoke on your wheel. The spoke on the wheel, while it does provide support, it's just one of those things. It's just another thing to add onto your busy schedule already. Really hard. But if you run everything through your podcast, every prospect comes through your every referral source, they become people that sit in your guest seat. And what a great opportunity to have great conversations with people when they're sitting in this podcast guest seat. I just love it. One of the things that you mentioned about the painting, and I think this is such a valid point. Maybe I led wrong. I was leading with maybe can you turn your passion into a moneymaker? And then you said, well, you get passionate about what you're doing and it will become the moneymaker. And it's like, I love customer service. I love over delivering. I could take any business, whether I'm a plumber or a painter or a guy working on cars, and over service the hell out of each one of my clients, be passionate about over delivering services. And that could be the thing that we could focus on. So it almost doesn't matter what your side hustle is at that point. Is that fair?
Yeah, I mean, my first online side hustle was a comparison shopping site for shoes. It was like, where can you find the best price on your next pair of shoes? And it, worked on an affiliate basis from Zappos and Amazon and all these. We'll pull in the catalogs and spit back out the best price. I probably bought 3 pairs of shoes over the course of 10 years. Like I was my own worst customer.
Was it your thing?
But what I found, it was a ton of fun to optimize and split test and figure out all the ad tweaks and things, to make this into a profitable business. And that's where I found my passion was, not in the inventory management and like the day-to-day of it.
So what was your biggest, fastest failure, if you can remember? And then what was the one that, well, obviously what you're doing now has become your longest success, but let's start with the fastest failure. Was there a fast failure that you had along the way?
Yeah, so I had the shoe site up and running, and a lot of my ad partners also sold handbags and luggage and accessories. And so my idea, the whole idea with the shoe site was like, I'm going to have shoes in the URL. So that's going to appear to be more relevant to the people searching for shoes than the, back in that day, it was like Next Tag and Price Grabber, like these big comparison shopping engines. Like, hey, if these guys only do shoes, they must know it better, right? That was the theory. And so it was like, okay, what if we created a similar site, with that same back-end architecture, only this time it's about handbags and luggage and accessories. And it was called Carry My Stuff. It may still exist in the, Wayback Machine. You can go look it up. But it was, ended up being a huge flop because the breadth of advertisers that had these types of products was way, way more than the niche specific stores that were specializing in footwear. The commissions across the board were lower. It just didn't end up working out. And so had I done a bit more research up front, it could have saved some time and headache and development costs on there. Even though we were recycling a lot of the architecture that we already had, it was still not a profitable venture.
So talk about share the infrastructure of what you do and how you do it. People are looking for ideas about, well, what can they do in order to maybe maximize revenue for them or create their own side hustle? What's the model that you're working on that actually creates the revenue for you?
Today in the Side Hustle Nation brand? Yeah. So today, the 3 main pillars of the stool are sponsorships on the podcast. It's become a pretty significant income stream, advertising and affiliate relationships through the website and email list. And then the third leg of the stool is kind of my own products and services, which is admittedly a much shorter leg of the stool lately, but working on growing that part of it up.
Okay, so if we were to let's say, for the sake of argument, we have 1,000 people that are listening to our podcast that are podcasters themselves. One of the things I always stress with people when they first become a client within our production house is, let's not focus on advertising and sponsorship. We have no listeners. Nobody's going to buy advertising from you. So how did you see yourself making that first step? Was it Did you create your own industry standard as it came to your advertising rates? Did you follow the advertising rates that are, $25 per thousand listeners per episode, or how did you come up with that model so sponsorship became one of those three pillars?
Yeah, lately it's closer to that sold through an ad network, and it's probably close to that $25 CPM.
Right.
Early on, it was more like the Wild West, where it's like this is a niche audience, whatever you could
Right.
command. Um, but it was still probably 3 years of producing the show and trying to figure out, is this going to be a thing? It took me a while to realize, to your point, the show, especially a weekly show, because podcast advertising is kind of this game of amplitude
Yep.
and frequency, like how many people can we reach and how often can we reach them, right? And so if you have a daily show with a big audience, sure, the sponsorship stuff, it really pencils out nicely. But if you have a less popular show and you only do it every week, it's like, this is going to be a little bit more challenging. But what switched the flip, or what flipped the switch for me was starting to treat it more as content marketing rather than a business on its own. And so in practice, that was trying to drive email signups from the show. This was about a year and 14 months into it. We started creating these episode specific lead magnets. Like, hey, you're out walking the dog, you're at the gym, you're driving in the car, you're not in a good place to take notes. Meanwhile, my guest is dropping all this great tactical side hustle, how-to information, case study, tutorial type of stuff. Don't worry. We took notes for you. All you got to do is go to sidehustlenation.com/whatever.
Right.
And you could download those for free. And so that really, really accelerated the growth of the email list. And it was a big turning point for both for the podcast and like the broader Side Hustle Nation business, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. So again, let's talk to those 1,000 people in our audience that are podcasters that are listening specifically to what you just shared about advertising and sponsorship. Do you do things like full brand sponsorship where it's not just you're getting an ad on our podcast, you're also getting an email blast, you're getting social media posts, you're getting LinkedIn Lives or any of those? Is that all a part of the model that you share, or is it specifically I'm going to drop an ad on my show for you and that's what your dollars are buying?
It could definitely be better about, putting together the full email, social media package. The problem is my social media game is pretty weak. So the bulk of it is just what you said, that mid-roll placement.
Got it. Okay, let's go to the second leg of your stool, and you talked about, I think you said affiliates and commissions, correct?
Yeah, affiliate relationships and advertising on the website itself.
Got it. Okay, so affiliate relationships, Nice Guy Community. So you know what that is. Somebody comes to the podcast, they listen. Nick shares a specific link that has a tie back to Nick's show. They sell something because they heard it on Nick's show. He gets a small piece of the action. He has no deliverable. That's the best part. That's the part I love about affiliates the most. No deliverable, but you have a commission.
And in some cases, a recurring commission. It could be like, oh, we record with Riverside, or we edit with Descript, or any number of different podcasting tools and services out there. Where it's like it's almost it's a no-brainer. It's like, this is the stuff we use, we like it. Here's a recommendation.
Totally, and that is again another great way to make revenue for your podcast. If you have a podcast, if you don't have a podcast, affiliate marketing through your podcast is not going to happen. Doesn't mean it can't happen if you have an email list or full brand support, again, by social media posts. I'm assuming the answer, very similar to your advertising and sponsorship for affiliate and commissions there, is that it's just podcast announcements only, since your game isn't there where on social media. Is that the same thing?
Well, this is where there's a fork in the road for sure, because this is the website side of things, primarily driven from SEO, primarily driven from Google, almost independent of the podcast. In fact, we find the podcast listener is very entrepreneurial. They're in it for the long haul in comparison to the website traffic, where it's like, people come to the site searching, summer, what are the best summer side hustles to make extra money, or something like very specific, much more transactional. And it's like, okay, they're scrolling down to idea number 5 on the list, and then they're off. And maybe that's an affiliate conversion to go sign up for some rideshare app or driving app or something like that. And so that side of the business has been admittedly hurt by the last couple of years of algorithm updates and Reddit in the search results and AI summaries, but it's still a significant piece of the pie.
What's the next iteration of Nick look like? You have this side hustle gig that you got that's running well. You have the podcast. You have your website. What happens next? I mean, how do we take technology and really advance your business to the next level, or do you not and just deal with whatever you got going on?
Yeah, life. I mean, life is good, right? If tomorrow looks like today, that's not the end of the world. I'm
Right.
really grateful to be in that position. Still get a kick out of doing the show and scooping these creative, raw, sometimes off the wall, random side hustle stories. Like that is what lights me up, and it's super exciting to get to share that with the audience. Like, did you know you could make money doing this? So what am I trying to do? What am I working on? A couple things. One is getting better on the video side. And the bottleneck for me is scripting. It's like we've got this huge body of written content on the site, but how do we, in the light of declining SEO traffic, well, how do we translate some of that so it would be compelling for YouTube? And like I know there's an AI step in there somewhere. Well, how do we take this and turn it into a compelling script? Like, step two is the question
Yep.
mark there. The other thing that I'm trying to do is, and I've been working with like a Claude custom project for
Mhm.
this, I guess similar to like a custom GPT, where it's like training it on here's what we recorded, and here's what we ended up cutting from that episode, like the transcript,
Right.
and here's the new raw recording. What do you recommend? What do you recommend? Trimming this to make it sound like a side hustle show episode. And so trying to get that figured out, because that's where I do spend a lot of my time in post production, is in kind of like marking up the transcripts to say, yeah, we recorded 55 minutes, let's try and cut it down to 45, stuff like that. There's a couple things that hopefully we can accelerate or improve some of the workflows.
So I don't know the answer to this question. It's always it's never a good idea to ask a question you don't already know the answer to, especially when you're gonna put a spotlight on you. But do you have a team? Is it just you that does all this? Tell me, give me the infrastructure of how your business works.
Well, I was just sending this to somebody else who was asking about production. I was like, oh man, now that you write it out, it's maybe needlessly complex. But after I do that transcript markup, that goes off to the audio editing person. They do that side of the thing.
Right.
A separate video editing person will create the video cut for YouTube. A separate thumbnail person will create the thumbnail. A
Right.
separate show notes summarizer person will
Right.
draft the thing for the email. And my administrative assistant uploads it to Megaphone and like gets that all scheduled out. So maybe there's more touch points than there needs to be, but that's
No,
kind of
no,
how
I'm with you 100%. I mean, I think about the things that are within my zone of genius, which are relationship building and selling. I mean, those are the things that I love doing the most. Those are the things that drives me to want to do more and do it better. If you ever see me in a spreadsheet or editing one of my podcast episodes or putting up a social media post or any of that stuff, you know that I am not in my zone of genius. And I found that there is not a direct connection between the harder you work and the more money you make. I found that if you stay in your zone of genius, you can work less and make more. So the fact that you've put people in a position to do each one of those four or five things that you just listed, bravo to you. It means, look, you don't love doing that stuff, so why would you ever find yourself in that? I find that most people in the beginning of their side hustle, you've got to do it all because you've got to know how it works. But then as quickly as you take it all on, you need to learn to assign those responsibilities to other people. Do you find that is sage advice, or do you go counter that advice?
No, I'm with you. You gotta do it yourself so you can kind of appreciate the work involved. And it's hard to justify the expense, when you're first starting out and you don't have any revenue to justify it or to pay for it. And now it's like, well, if the show is making money, we could reinvest. It's like you mentioned, the zone of genius is coming up with the next hour of content. It's not, sitting trying
Right.
to, squeeze out, every little technical detail of the existing thing.
Yeah, I hear you. I think about the same thing. We brought on somebody recently that is helping us with marketing. And as a matter of fact, that as soon as you talked about marketing, I'm like, oh, I've got to give Nick my marketing person's name because I think it would be valuable to step out of that. And he's the one. Scott is his name, and he's the one that's like, Oh, well, I can reverse engineer an episode so that I can help you come up with the script or the content that you need to get the biggest bang for your buck. And I always thought, well, I don't want to be handcuffed by having to have this content so that I can, but it doesn't matter. I can come up with content based upon just somebody leading me down the path as opposed to the other way where I'm coming up with content. Make sure that crowbars into SEO and all the other stuff. So, you know, I love when somebody tells me this is what you need to do in order to go from point A, you know, to point C. Do you find that most side hustlers get lost in the process? Like, well, I don't. Now that I know how to do this, now that I know how to restore a classic car, how do I make money from that, or how do I figure out how to make money from that? Is that a challenge for a side hustler? Do you find?
I think more people get stuck on the initial idea startup phase. Like
Mm,
year after year, we run a survey and it's like half the people are still looking for an idea or like, I haven't started yet, or I'm making less than $100 a month. And it's kind of like, well, just pick something, you know, it almost doesn't
doesn't
matter.
matter.
You know, it's
Right, right.
because it's like what you know, choosing what's next doesn't mean choosing what's forever. And I get there's a lot of like self-inflicted pressure on, you know, picking the right thing. But truthfully, like I started out painting houses, I sold shoes on the internet. It took a while to figure out what, you know, what's going to be the thing, and that the thing that has the staying power. And so it's almost like it doesn't matter because the first thing is probably not going to be the last thing.
Uh,
Just, but
totally.
you practice this. There's some level of inertia, right? You know, an object in motion stays in motion. An entrepreneur in motion stays in motion.
Yes.
And there's something to building that positive habit of just taking action, seeing what kind of reaction it gets, seeing if you like doing it, and then sticking with it, keeping at it.
I think about I did an interview recently with Sean D. Nelson. He's the guy that was the creator, the founder of Lovesack. He and his side hustle made these huge beanbag chairs that he
Okay.
sold to some neighbors, you know, for a couple $100 after all the materials were done. And he ended up building a company. It's worth $1 billion+ right now. So
Wow.
it's like, what a side hustle. So nice guy community, as you're thinking, well, what do I want to do? Like Nick just said, it doesn't really matter. Sean took a business and created out of beanbag chairs $1 billion empire. Grant Cardone, who was recently on the show, also he took this small first real estate investment in an apartment house and he's built it into 6,000 plus units that he has across the country. I mean, that's the kind of stuff. It doesn't really matter what it is. I think action is the part that most people they just stop. I don't know why they stop, but I mean, can you provide any rationale behind why somebody just doesn't get their wheels under them just to get moving? Are they afraid of failure? What are they afraid of?
Well, fear of failure is a real thing, especially if you're going to broadcast it out to your immediate
Right.
network, your friends
Yeah.
and family.
Right.
And it makes you really vulnerable in a way. And I remember having to kind of swallow that in a little bit. Like in 2014, I had this opportunity to do this local TEDx talk, and this was really cool, kind of a bucket list type of moment.
Hmm.
But it was kind of awkward because it's like if you're sharing this with your friends, and all of a sudden this is like serious Nick, not like jokey, you know,
Right.
hanging
Right.
out on Friday night Nick. And
Right.
it was like, oh, it was a weird place to be. And everybody, you know, thankfully people were like, oh, that was actually pretty good. Like, who knows if they're just blowing smoke or being nice, but it is, the fear of failure definitely is a real thing. What you might also consider is this, you know, fear of success, which I never had heard of until somewhat recently. People
Yeah.
said like, you know, what if it works? It's like, what are you talking about? Fear of success.
I'm going to be too
But
busy. I'm going to leave all my friends behind. All of the excuses. It's like,
yeah,
again, same thing. It is real. Fear of success is almost as much of a deterrent as fear of failing.
yeah, I think where people kind of end up throwing in the towel is, you know, I'm just not seeing the results that I expected to see as fast as I expected to see them. And that everything takes longer than you want it to. And
Yeah.
it's kind of almost a universal of, and especially if you're only working on it part time, it's like, you know, it might take 2 times as long, 3 times as long as you think it should, but there's some value in keeping at it as long as you don't come to dread the work, right? That's usually my baseline
Yeah.
for, you know,
Yeah.
when is it time to throw in the towel? When you come to dread the work. Nobody needs a second job. Nobody needs a side hustle that they like
Right.
hate working on. And that's not to say like every day is going to be rainbows and unicorns. Like, of course there's hard things to do, but you know, if more days are bad than good, like, okay, maybe back to the drawing board, try something else.
I just think of, I mean, maybe this is just, and I'm going to come back to that pin in just a second about the difference between side hustle and entrepreneur. I just keep coming back to the my brain is constantly seeking opportunity. I'm constantly looking for opportunity, whether that's through my podcast or through my car rental business or through we have an Airbnb that was an Airstream. We discovered that it was going to cost about 300 grand to put a second unit in our backyard, which is a big backyard. So instead of that, we spent 15 grand on buying and restoring an old Airstream. So
Nice, super creative.
and we took this Airstream, we put a deck on the front. Now it's listed on Airbnb, and now it's like it's going out a couple times a weekend. You know, it's like this is great. I mean, a couple times a month. This is
Yeah.
great. It's a great opportunity for us to now think about saving the $200,000 and $300,000 that we
Mhm.
need. But like, why do that? Let's just put a second Airstream on our property. I'm always looking for opportunity. Do you find that that is one of the unique traits, qualities, detriments, whatever you want to consider it, of someone that is a side hustler?
Yeah, detriment maybe. For me, that's like
It's-
for me, that's the mark of a good episode. When I hang out being like, dang, I kind of want to have a vending machine business now, or
yeah, yeah.
I should totally go do that. But that's what also keeps it fresh, because some of the stuff we're talking about didn't even exist 10, 12 years ago. All the AI powered options that are available to you. It's just been a fun evolution there. But no, there's always more ideas than there are hours in the day. And we
Oh,
actually have a
yeah.
series of episode called like the business idea giveaway show, where I call up my friend Steve, who's got his kids are a little bit older than mine. And we just go back and forth for like half an hour, 45 minutes on like, this ought to exist in the world. Or, hey, I was at the restaurant the other day. What if there was a tool that made you do this? Just,
Hey, how do I get on your short list of people you call and have that conversation with? Because I am an idea guy. I love ideas, not necessarily the implementation of the idea, but I just love kicking around ideas like that.
yeah,
If you
yeah, no,
ever
it's
have a
it's
segment,
super
I'm
fun.
in.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, I want to come back to the question that I had stated about 15 minutes ago, and then we'll wrap up. The difference between a side hustler and an entrepreneur. Is there any difference or is it the same?
Um, my take on it is it's like, riding a bike versus riding a bike with training wheels, right? It is allowing you to test the waters of entrepreneurship while you still have the safety net of your full-time job. Like there's a Reid Hoffman line from LinkedIn about, entrepreneur is somebody who jumps off the cliff and figures out how to build their parachute on the way down, or some line, like I probably butchered it.
No, that's cool.
But and that sounds terrifying, right? Like given the constraints of reality and commitments and jobs and kids and mortgages, like what if we could lower the height of the cliff?
Yeah.
That's what the side hustle gospel is all about. Like, how do we make that less of an intimidating leap? Start something small, start something low risk, start it on the side, build it up to the point where you're like, okay, now I feel comfortable. And that was it for me, right? I don't think my side hustle, the shoe business, had like fully replaced my day job salary, but it was at least covering my monthly expenses.
Right.
I felt like confident enough I wasn't going to go backwards, right? And it's like, okay, I'm going to take the leap and do it now.
I remember when I spent 30 years, 37 years actually, as my last count. My girlfriend said, "No, you spent more than 30 years doing that." I spent 37 years as a DJ, and it was always a side hustle for me. Well, always in the very beginning, from 1984 to 1997, it was a side hustle. In
Okay.
'97, I was making probably $50,000 or $60,000 at my full time job, and I was making $50,000 a year as a Saturday night DJ.
Isn't that great? Yeah.
It was great. So I had a decision to make. I'm like, I could go all in with this W-2 thing. What the hell am I going to do that for? Or I could go all in for the DJ business. And we ended up building a DJ business for the next 20 some odd years after that first 10 or whatever it was,
Yeah.
building a business that was bringing in 900 gigs a year. So we were doing like millions of dollars in
Wow.
business. And it's like I love what you just said about having the side hustle be an opportunity for you to, as you're building as you're building your business, you work a full-time job. I probably have entrepreneur brain, like I want to own my own business, but at the time it was I have side hustle like fear, the fear of what if I don't make enough money? The two things I did between podcast production, which was the reinvention of my career, from DJing, it was the same thing. I'm like, when am I going to leave my DJ business? Well, as soon as I have my production business, and that only took a couple of years because I understood the dynamics and the steps that I had to take as a side hustler turned into full-time entrepreneur. And it sounds like you did a lot of the same thing too. Now, did you ever have a full-time gig, or were you always doing side hustle stuff?
Yeah, I had a one and only corporate gig fresh out of school. That it lasted 3 years while I was building the shoe business on the side.
Well, that is very cool. Okay, so we answered the question, entrepreneur versus side hustle. I think that I am probably by nature a side hustler, but everybody labeled it. It was like after 2000, it was always, oh, you're an entrepreneur. I'm like, no, I have this side thing that I have going on. I always wanted the side thing.
And maybe there's like,
yeah.
It's something about having ownership in something, right? It's that, I'm working for cash flow and profits, but I'm also like, I have equity in this business. And that's something that I don't get from a second job. It's not something that I get at my day job. And there's like this entrepreneurial upside where you can almost double dip if every dollar that you add in monthly cash flow also increase the equity value of the business. And it is a really, really interesting way to accelerate your wealth building.
Right. And the other thing that's really cool about it is that you're your own boss. You don't have to worry about, somebody that's watching you punch a clock or concerned about the salary. You're not victim.
Which has its own pros and cons.
Yeah, no doubt. It's like your own hours. Well, you can pick the 10 hours a day that you want to work, but you get smarter as you do this too. And I find that, yes, you are if you're lazy and you're somebody that doesn't want to take action, side hustling probably is not for you. If you're somebody that wants to be driven, you're self-motivated, you don't need somebody standing behind you, side hustle can be something that could be pretty profitable, which it seems to, be the case for Nick. It seems to be the case for me as well. I couldn't imagine going back to work for somebody. I've 40 years self-employed now. I could not imagine having a boss. You?
I'm starting to try and do the math on your age because you look quite young. And I'm like, well, how we started the DJ business in 1984.
I'm I just turned 60 this year. So 61 this year. And
wow, you wear it well.
Just party for a living. That's all. That's all I do.
Yeah,
just party for a living. That's very cool. Nick, man, I so appreciate you being on the show. I want to share with our listening audience the best ways to get more information, but I don't want to step on you with, hey, go to the podcast, or hey, go to the Facebook site. What's the best way that somebody could have to engage your brand?
Yeah, of course, we'd love to have you tune into the Side Hustle Show. 600, I'm not nowhere near close to Doug, but still 600 plus episodes to choose from.
Plenty.
It is very much the podcast and the website are very much choose your own adventure, right? You don't need to listen in order. It is kind of a question of, well, that sounds interesting. Oh, I want to learn a little bit more about that, and hopefully you pick and choose something that is going to resonate with you, and you go take action and you go make some more money.
Oh, awesome. And we'll make sure we put a link to not only the podcast, but to his website and to Facebook page and all of that stuff as well. Head over to the show notes so that you can see that. I'm about to do something I probably shouldn't do. Again, putting you on the spot. I want to be on your show, Nick. I don't know how do I get there, but I just want to have great conversation. You're a guy that's so laid back and so chill. Just to have a conversation with you about the excitement of the side hustle gets me excited. So if I ever do get invited, I would graciously say yes.
Yeah, we just got to figure out the right hook, the right angle for you, because it sounds like you got a wealth of side hustle experience.
Definitely. Well, nice guy community. Thanks for sharing today. Nick, thanks for being on the show. Thanks for, again, sharing your wisdom and your expertise on the podcast. Thanks for being here.
You bet. Cheers.
Nice guy community, never underestimate the value of nice. Again, special thanks to Nick Loper. All of his information, including access to his site and his podcast, right there in the show notes. You know how to get there. Just click the link. Okay, Steve O'Brien, go ahead and take us out of here.
For the nice guys on business, I'm Steve O'Brien. And may the force be with them. They need all the help they can get.